sales psychology 101, where like if you're going to list your prices for your product or service, and I see online you've got a $1 product, a $5 product, and a $10 product, well, I'm immediately going to gravitate towards the $1 product and say, well, there's any reason why I shouldn't be paying this for what I'm looking to get, particularly in the services space. Whereas with a product, it's much easier to say, okay, I get this level of activity or service through my Zoom subscription or fill in the blank, versus a service where you're interacting with people that are serving you on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's probably going to change over time how we bucket this, how we market it, and it's been kind of cool even over the last 6 months to see how it's transformed from that more bucketized approach to like it's almost helping us define where we want to fit in the market. Like,
Let's go. We are
it's a
talking about
party.
it is a party. Man, I'm jazzed about today's conversation because we're talking about all things sales and marketing, and
Your
I get
wheelhouse.
it. Yeah, I guess wheelhouse. I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA by trade, but spend a lot of time there, and I have fun with it. I like it. So, yeah, we're gonna dive into sales and marketing today. Are you excited about it, Stacey?
I'm so excited to prompt you with questions because this is my I wouldn't say this is like my like skill set. I'm getting better, but
I was gonna say, I remember the first sales call that you hopped on with me, and you were like audibly nervous. There was like some shakiness in your voice, and I was like, man, that's funny. Like
isn't
people
that
are
funny?
nervous.
Oh my gosh, I actually thought about that this morning, oddly enough, and I had the thought that wow, that was kind of weird how nervous I was, but then also pretty cool how quickly I got over that and it never felt that way again. It's just like that one call and then now it's all smooth sailing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like there's little uh there's a lot of intentionality in these conversations, but there's very little like, hey, we have to accomplish these five things on the call, make it really rigid. That's not how we do things. And so like with me having that mindset and seeing you being nervous is like, this is just a conversation. Come on now.
Well, it's so cool because this is my first go at client work, client facing work, and it's just a whole new world for me. Like
Yeah.
even the call this morning, getting on the client, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm quite where I need to be. And they're so grateful and happy and excited. And I'm just shifting my perception on expectations and how to talk to clients and how to sell to clients. And I think it's so cool that you love it. I'm learning about it and we make a good team. So let's
I
dig
will
in.
say, yeah, happy to dig in. I will say from the start, to hone in a skill set in business development and marketing, for me, I transitioned straight from public accounting into business development. And the very first step I took in that journey was hiring an executive coach.
Hmm.
And that was an executive sales coach specifically to help me better understand the world of sales and BD. And that was the most instrumental move I've made in my career, to have greater comfortability with that function of the business. So yes, let's dive in.
I'm interested in that though. Like, were they trying to get your mindset on the psychology of conversation, or what was like if you'd highlight the top three things, what was it?
Yeah, so it was more around various tactics and strategies to use when selling. I was in an environment where there's a lot of cold outreach, a lot of just cold conversations, and not necessarily, hey, I got an introduction and there's a pre-existing relationship. And so it was more of like, how do you create a story? How do you frame a conversation with a prospect to help them understand how you can meet their needs and exceed their needs? And so there were a variety of strategies used based on numerous books that we studied throughout this time with this executive coach. But I think it wasn't necessarily one strategy or one way of approaching a conversation that stood out to me. It was more of, how do I take elements of all these and fit it more to my style and my approach? Because everybody's different.
I love it. I think anyone could learn from it, especially if you're on your own or a firm owner and having these conversations with clients. I think across the industry, accountants, we tend to undersell our services or, justify a lower price for whatever reason. And we can all be better at really valuing what we're worth and properly explaining that to clients and articulating the why behind the certain price range.
Oh, totally. And I think one step beyond that too is the detail in which things are explained. Because if I'm sitting here talking to a prospect and I'm saying, oh, well, the deferred revenue needs to be recognized according to ASC 606, and I'm like pushing my glasses up my nose and trying to get deep on this, the client's gonna be like, I don't freaking care. Like, is it gonna get done right? Yeah. And so, like, trying to reframe how you talk about this is something that takes a lot of time and practice, to be honest. But most accountants will tend to go really deep on tax code, really deep on accounting regulation, and generally you lose people real quick in that conversation.
Well, this is such a cool topic because obviously we're going to talk a lot about our sales and marketing process, our onboarding, our scoping, all that in this call. But when we think about how do we tailor what's actually important to them, but also give them the trust that we know our stuff on the stuff that you want us to know.
Yeah.
We know the ASC 606, we know the tax codes, we know those things. We're not going to talk to you about them because they're not important. So it's a striking a balance between the trust that we do know that technical complexity, but we're only going to talk to you about cash flow and metrics that KPIs that actually drive change in your business.
Yeah. Toning down to what is that? What is the reason that they reached out to you? What is their pain point, and are you in position to solve it, and how do you bridge that gap in the form of a discovery call to make sure that they feel comfortable with you being able to solve that problem? And there is a level of depth that you have to go into, but you can also talk about it in a way that connects to their business, their industry, their problems.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about like what we've done on the sales and marketing front, and then dive into just the standard of how we go about scoping clients, talking with clients, and ultimately closing the deal. So let's start there. Let's talk about the Full Send brand.
Yeah, so full send brand. So when we started, I had set up a three-tier plan model where it was you can sign up for our startup plan, our growth plan, or full send plan. And I did that largely due to influence by other folks in this industry who I respect and admire a lot. And also setting it up for scalability of, hey, if we have clients in these specific buckets, it'll be a lot easier to serve them, knowing what we're doing. And then there's this fixed price attached to it. And what I've discovered in the market that we serve in this venture capital backed high growth industry, that there is so much variability on a month to month basis. And some clients need this, some clients want this. And these boxes that I was trying to push people into um, ultimately proved to be quite challenging because I started to kind of mix and match services from different buckets, and ultimately, we ended up strategically shifting more towards a more customized value-based pricing approach, still retaining fixed cost. But I found that there's a lot of disorientation occurring between what the packages included and offered, and then what the clients actually wanted and how rapidly they evolved into different services.
Yeah, I think one thing too is when I first started, we had those prices listed on the website. So it's each tier, how much you can expect. And what we found is that you have a fairly complex company that doesn't understand their accounting and they think they fall into this lower price tier for whatever reason. And you're already starting out at a place where you have to go beyond this barrier where they are misaligning the value proposition that you provide. So ultimately, we decided we're not going to put pricing specifically on the website, but we're going to give examples of guiding people to better understand, oh, this resonates with what we have. Oh, makes more sense. And this is what a typical client like that might be paying, to avoid those confusing conversations at the get-go.
Yeah, and ultimately it goes back to price anchoring. And
Mhm.
so, it's sales
Sales
psychology.
strategies.
Yeah, exactly. It's sales psychology 101, where like if you're going to list your prices for your product or service, and I see online you've got a $1 product, a $5 product, and a $10 product, well, I'm immediately going to gravitate towards the $1 product and say, well, there's any reason why I shouldn't be paying this for what I'm looking to get, particularly in the services space. Whereas with a product, it's much easier to say, okay, I get this level of activity or service through my Zoom subscription or fill in the blank, versus a service where you're interacting with people that are serving you on a monthly basis.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's probably going to change over time how we bucket this, how we market it, and it's been kind of cool even over the last 6 months to see how it's transformed from that more bucketized approach to like it's almost helping us define where we want to fit in the market. Like this higher level service tier, it's really hard to give a fixed price and on without clearly talking with the client, understanding their needs, and meeting them where they are.
Exactly. And so we strategically shifted away from that and into more of a value-based pricing approach where we have pricing examples listed on the website. And there's still some challenges in there, in
Yeah.
terms of how we've presented it. We're still working through that. But ultimately, a large part of the effort and the shift into that strategy was branding, it was messaging, it was positioning ourselves and how we want to work with clients. And we went through a massive branding exercise this year to reposition ourselves and reinvent ourselves in the market and how we come across to clients. And I think that has made a huge impact.
That was such a fun process. That was probably week 1, right when I started. We started this whole new process, and not only was it, the logo, the rebrand and pricing, but it was, the whole thing we've talked about many times here is mission, vision, values, who we are, who we want to be, and let's make sure that's reflected on the site. For us, though, it was like that was an investment. There's a price tag to it, and we wanted to make sure the effort we were putting in would have brought us, 2+ years of material that we can use and feel really good about how the work we've put in to make our brand stand out.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about the brand. I'm so confident in the investment that we made in that. And that's largely due to the fact that most people are starting to source vendors, service providers online first. They're looking at reviews, they're looking at digital footprint.
Mhm.
And so we're making a bet on that being a really good way to make sure that our message is being communicated really well. Whereas the standard accounting firm website you go to and you're like, oh, cool, you offer audit and tax, and you're bored by the third page you're on because you're just like, oh my gosh, like it looks like they have what I need. I guess I'll reach out.
Mhm.
And we're trying to flip that script to engage differently and to make people get the feels when they come to our website and they say, identify with you as a brand. And I'm going to reach out because I want to get to know you. I want you to potentially work with me. And I think that connecting piece is
Mhm.
something that we're going to lean heavily into from marketing, sales, and BD perspective. And a lot of it is top of funnel. It is brand identity, but also it's heavily into our core operations and our values, like you said.
Yeah, I think it informs most of the conversations we have with new prospect clients because we're asking ourselves, you know, do they fit our mantras? Are they following our values? We don't want to really misalign too much with clients and how we want to operate. If you're looking for um I don't know, very I don't even know what we wouldn't fit in, but I think being kind, those type of things, we want to make sure we're fitting. If you're not looking for a conversational, new age, new tech, willing to improve your process, something went wrong in the messaging there for that initial conversation.
Yeah, and that a lot of that occurs in the scoping and discovery process for us. Today, we don't have firm criteria on who we do and don't take on. We have a really good sense and a good pulse of who our core client is, but we're willing to go outside of that a little bit. And right now, we're operating largely on gut feel of who
Yeah.
can we serve really, really
Hmm.
well, and we're
Hmm.
hyper confident in that. And those that we feel we're not sure if we're the best fit for you, we're very much okay with moving those to other providers that would be a better fit. And
Yeah.
so that discovery process is really helpful for us to qualify those opportunities.
All right, well, then let's talk more about what we do, how we do it. How do we answer those questions before we're ready to send over that proposal?
Yeah, so from a process standpoint, when we identify a new opportunity, whether it comes in from a lead, or a referral or a lead on the website or LinkedIn message, our first step is generally to understand what types of services they're looking for. And so if they're like, hey, we need a tax provider, well, that's not us. And so we're going to go ahead and make a referral to somebody that we feel is in a good position to serve them. If they start to say, hey, we need bookkeeping account support, we need financial reporting, we need some financial advisory support. Okay, now you're speaking our language. Let's set up a discovery call to learn more about your business, learn more about you, what your goals are. And so we then move into the step to have that discovery call where we're
30
asking, oh,
minutes. 30 minutes quick.
yeah,
Yeah.
a 30-minute call. We're learning about what systems are in place, how they've managed accounting historically, where they're going, have they raised capital, who the stakeholders are, and then just getting to know the person. What's their why? What's their reason for being in this business? And is it moving in a direction that we can hitch our wagon to? And so it's a fun process. I like that discovery call a lot.
Yeah, I think you do a great job. I love it because I don't feel like I'm selling. I feel like I'm just talking to business owners, and I like that. I think they appreciate that too. It doesn't feel like they're being sold to. But a lot of times, the intangible things that we're looking at are: does this person seem really, really stressed in a way that alleviating their accounting issues won't help? Is
Mm-hmm.
that person going to be replying to my emails timely? Are they going to be willing to let us help them in the ways that we need to? Because if we get engaged with a team or a partner there that is unresponsive, isn't equipped or supported in a way to get us what we need, that's more stress on our side, anyways.
It is, and qualifying those things is very difficult in a
Yeah.
discovery call. You can't just be like, "Hey, are you going to respond to my emails?" No, okay, cool. We're not a good fit. And so really, it's just uh, producing a line of questioning that indicates to you how you're going to work together, what the
Hmm.
expectations are on both sides. Really, aligning on those things. Um, I think during that discovery process, it's not, you alluded to a sales call. Like it is a sales call because we're articulating what we do, but ultimately we're spending more time educating than we are selling anything. And that's where we want to be too. Like we don't want to have to hard sell anybody to say, hey, we're a right fit and here's 3 reasons why. It's more of we're going to educate you on what options exist in the market. Here's where we feel really strong. And if you feel like there's good synergy there, all right, let's move forward into the next step.
Yeah, and oftentimes it does, or they're looking for taxes, and we say, "Hey, here's a good provider. We'll follow up." But um, most of the time, I think our branding has been doing a good job of funneling people who are like-minded and have understood what our service is, what we provide.
Yeah, I agree. And what's cool about it is it's attracting a lot of cool outdoor rec brands and Stokey kind of brands that have this full send mentality, and a lot of founders that have that themselves. So it does act as a really good guardrail for those that are reaching out to us and for people who get referred to us that go to our website that then get that additional confidence that we may be the right fit.
Yeah, my favorite are clients that come to us and are like, "Please tell us what systems we need that'll make our lives easier. I'm willing to change. Nothing is set in stone." Those are my favorite because it's essentially a blank slate. We can come in with recommendations. Obviously, we won't do anything without approvals, but those are the clients I love to work with because they're willing to be better. They're willing to implement change, and they're just willing to try new things and
Yeah,
make their own lives easier in the way. So, my favorite.
totally. So once we move through that discovery call, we're always working towards one of two outcomes. Either it's a good fit, we move forward, or we recognize it's not a good fit and we make a referral to another group. And so when we move forward into our more traditional scoping process, that's where we're spending time looking at we request financials, we look at the financials, we look at the historical transactional activity, we get a sense as to what the relative complexity looks like, the transaction volume, to get our arms wrapped around what's the time and effort and relative complexity required for us to manage this really well on the back end, and then what price does that result in on the back end for clients. And so we're spending I don't know, a good amount of time on the back end really scoping it out so then we can deliver something that not only meets their expectations but solves their problems.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think for mostly CPG clients, there's some others, but CPG clients, I really like to have the QuickBooks access, the accountant access to really dig in, see the subledger, how are there current accountants doing things on the back end? Is there going to be a lot of cleanup work? There's a lot that can be discovered when you have the accounting access to QuickBooks, and a lot that can be hidden when you're just given an export of the trailing 12-month income statement or balance sheet.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's a requirement, but to your point, you
Mhm.
learn so much more, and we've had experiences where we've been surprised maybe once we've engaged with the client and we didn't get full access, or we get full access and we're like, whoa, there this accountant
A
that,
lot happening here.
yeah, our clients or our prospect was paying like 10 grand a month to, and it's just like, it's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's
Mhm.
unbelievable to me how many times we've seen that, not only from like the low cost providers, which we generally expect, but from providers that are charging a lot of money monthly to manage this stuff.
Yeah, it's a good learning exercise, and it prompts new questions and findings. But it's a really good way for us to just price it. I mean, still,
Yeah.
we don't have a like pricing methodology or matrix or something that helps us really define it. Um, right now, eventually we will. And I know you have a little bit of a framework that informed things, but a lot of it's just based on what we can provide.
Yeah, and I built out a framework initially, and I still go by that, just for a point
Oh,
of
I'm wrong
reference.
then, I guess. My
Yeah.
bad.
So I still utilize a pricing framework and a strategy for, ultimately making sure that what we're delivering and how we're delivering it matches up with the value we're providing. And one thing that I failed to mention when talking about the discovery call is demonstrating how we work with clients, what systems we're using, what experience that the prospect will have once they're engaged with us. And it really sometimes feels more like a product demo than it does articulating what services we can provide. And when we're able to demonstrate, here's what you will be receiving every month, here's the type of reporting you will receive, clients are like, whoa, okay, I didn't know that that was possible. And it's really, really fun to see that click and a founder be like, oh, I need that type of reporting. That's
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, the visuals are really handy, and I highly recommend like a demo version so you can present just blank data to prospective clients and really let them see. Like we use reach reporting, love it. It's clients love it too. Just having access to that is the visual way. It's more of a KPI type reporting where you're not getting your standard income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flows. It's what are my gross margins? How
Yeah.
or where is my cash going each month? Um, it's answering the questions that they're asking.
it, it's going beyond the questions that they're asking. And I mean, we started by taking QuickBooks reports, delivering a balance sheet, a statement of cash flow, a profit and loss statement each month. And I think we got a little bit of feedback from clients saying like, this is great, but I don't really know what to do with this. But ultimately, we had the recognition to see that clients are like, cool, looks like my books are done. Check that box, move on. And we're trying to be more of that advisor type to clients rather than just providing a check the box type service, to where we transitioned our reporting to this more visual presentation that now clients are like, this is awesome, I look forward to getting this every month. it's
Hmm.
it's way more rewarding to hear that versus like, all right, thanks for checking that box.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing we're toying with right now is because we are really interested in early stage growth companies. We don't have something really locked in yet, but like how do we help scale with our companies that we feel like can be something really exciting and but they can't afford a full-blown accounting system and provider just yet. So, okay, let's meet them where they are, explain exactly what they're going to get for that price point, which will be, less than the clients at a higher price point, and then explain how we would envision growing with them and increasing the services based on their needs.
That's definitely a gap today
Mhm.
in terms of, we can talk about it a lot, but ultimately we fall into the trap quite often of, we're moving outside of this initial scope that we agreed to,
Mhm.
and we're basically just doing bonus work and we're not charging for it.
Yeah.
And there's certainly like out of scope items that we are charging for that are more project based, but for most of our clients, we're going probably too far in terms of our responsiveness, in terms of
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
we're delivering services. And ultimately, it's a good thing because we're providing a quality service and the clients are getting value out of that. But ultimately, we need to characterize better and put a little bit more rigor behind how we grow with clients and what that looks like from a relationship standpoint.
Yeah, we got to put a framework in place for that. Just because we like it's we love these people too. You know, we're excited about what
Yeah.
they're building, but it's not scalable for us to maintain that as we grow. So that'll be something to lean into for sure.
Yeah, and ultimately we're trying to find scalability in a services company, which it's hard to do. It's really hard to do because historically, to scale a services-based business, you have to hire more people. It's
Hmm.
more people, more direct labor hours equals scalability. And
Hmm.
ultimately there are innate fallacies in the scalability of one human and their ability to accomplish more. And so we're
Yeah,
trying to lean into these systems, lean into like more of these product demo type things to demonstrate to clients how we're providing that value that ultimately uh, gives a better experience to them, but also allows us to scale a little bit better internally as well.
totally. Um, so okay, we go through this process. We're checking into their systems. We find a price point, and then we do another call.
We do. We do. So once we get through discovery, our last step is always going to be kind of the deep dive conversation. So we've had a chance to look at the books. We've put together a scope of work, what our pricing structure looks like, and now we want to deliver this to a client and walk them through how we're going to serve them really well. And one of the shifts that we've made in the last few months is visually representing that versus just talking through how we're going to work together. And I think that's been really helpful to use a visual aid in our conversation to
Mhm.
just put out there. We're all looking at it together. Here are the pain points that you identified. Here are the problems you want to solve. Here's how we're going to solve them, and here's what it's going to look like when we work together. And so you're kind of moving through this journey of, okay, we're getting to know you. We know your problems. You have an understanding of how we work with you and what we'll be delivering. We're learning, and now we're demonstrating that capability in the deep dive conversation. And so once we get to that point, obviously we want the outcome for any prospect to be like, I can't imagine working with anybody else but you. That's not always the case, but it provides a really good experience to demonstrate how it all flows to this kind of culmination of here's our proposal, and you've got several assets and points along the way to reference back to that
Mhm.
ultimately shows you how we're going to work together.
Mhm. I want to touch on pricing a little bit because we made a small change in the conversation around pricing where you decided to put the price on like the second page of the presentation right up front. You don't have to, we're not making you wait till to sell this to you and then bang, hit you with a price tag. Um, you're shifting it to say, this
Yeah.
is the price. Let me explain to you why this is the price. Did you learn that from your mentor?
No, no,
You
not
learned
at
that in sales
all.
class.
I think it was a reaction to a sales call that we had where I just felt not dirty, but I felt like there was a disconnect between the last slide of where we had price and everything that came before that. And
Mhm.
and I felt like there was a cadence to the conversation that was kind of missing because the prospect just wanted to get to the price. How much is it going to
Yeah,
cost me?
yeah, mhm,
And so we re-engineered it on the next proposal discussion to put it up front and say, here are your problems, here's how we're going to solve them, and here's what it's going to cost. And that's the very first slide, the first 3 minutes of a conversation, that's what we hit. And then we move into here's actually how it's going to get accomplished and how we're going to work together so that then they're less fixated on just the number, the price, and more
mhm,
fixated on the problem solving.
mhm. I think it's gone well,
I
I'd
mean,
say. It feels better. Feels
yeah,
better.
I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, I want to know, I want to know the price. We do this with
Mhm,
vendors too. It's like, what is it going to cost us? And
mhm.
it's not because we're so price conscious that, we need to know specifically what the price is before we even move further in the conversation. It's just that kind of human nature of like, what do I have to give in order to receive?
Yeah, yeah,
And so I think it's really, really helped frame conversations well.
mhm. So then once we have this conversation, obviously we get feedback and, go through back and forth. Um, we put it into a contract.
Yeah, then we put everything into a contract exactly as we present it. And, in the contract, there's going to be far more characterization as to what's in that service. So, like, we may say something to the effect of financial reporting or financial dashboarding in a proposal document, but then in the contract, it'll actually walk through specifically what does that mean and how are we serving you. It also walks through the client expectations side. How can you expect to communicate with us? How are we going to be responding to you? A little bit more on that side,
Mm-hmm.
just so we're all on the same page moving forward once we have that contract signed. And I'd like to have that delivered like the moment that we walk through that proposal, but ultimately I want a prospect to feel really comfortable at the end of that proposal discussion, have some time to digest it, ask questions before delivering it. So I think there's still
Mm-hmm.
some timing things in there that need to get worked out, but it's been a good flow.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty great so far. It feels personal, and that's what we want. The one thing I want to revisit, and I don't think we're doing a terrible job yet, but um, making sure we're really clear in the contract of what's in scope and what would fall out of scope. We haven't really had many challenges yet, but it's a theme I hear constantly in our network that it can be challenging of, where do you draw the line? Where do you tell the client, hey, this isn't part of what you're paying for? This is going to be out of scope. This will be how we bill it and things like that.
Yeah, there's a fine line between like
Mm-hmm.
do you overscope in your contract, say like specifically I will do this task and that will include
Yeah.
these three things.
Mm-hmm.
And to your earlier point, ultimately we're in the relationship business. We're engaging in a relationship with our clients. It's not just, hey, you're buying this and we're just going to deliver this and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there is some nebulous nature to how those contracts are structured, and ultimately they're just conversations that we need to have with prospects that we try to educate as much as possible on the front end. And
Mm-hmm.
then the contract is the contract, but I do think we can get a little bit more specific in that side of things.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. I don't think we're in a terrible spot. I think it does language does explain it fairly well. But I'm sure the time will come when there's a slight disagreement on whether it's included or not, and I'd prefer to have something to look back at and have that written down so we can justify it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that'll come soon.
Yeah.
Soon. I think
Mhm.
you'll push me on that because it is something we need to get done. And
Mhm.
ultimately it's a benefit to our clients as much as it is us, because
Yeah.
they want to know specifically what type of arrangement they're getting into. But what I can tell you is that at the end of the day, in a fixed fee model that we operate in, plus like an out of scope hourly, that is a far better starting point than just hourly work.
Mhm.
Because in that arrangement, clients are just like, whoa, you spent 60 hours on my account this month and my bill is three times what I thought it would be. And they come back to us or their provider, and the provider's like, oh, well, it took us 60 hours, sorry. It's like that. I would much rather
Mm.
be where we're at today versus in that environment.
That doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies.
No, no, it doesn't. And of course, we could go into far more depth in terms of like how we process that stuff internally, how we move into onboarding as a next step, how we're trying to
Mhm.
automate some of those things. But for now, I think that's a pretty good overview of kind of where
Yeah.
we're at on the sales side.
It's going to be really cool to look back to because at this stage we're doing no outbound. Our outbound consists of this podcast, which is just us talking, um,
And
and
our
our
mom's
website.
listening.
Our moms telling their friends who don't even need accountants, and and just networking. We're not outbound. We're not really doing anything extra, and obviously we'll want to as we grow and scale, but it'll be cool to see how this changes and what the process is and what our program looks like and who's doing it, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
We're referral based today, which is beautiful. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're taking steps to start to move into more of the outbound, more of the community engagement. And I know one of us is very much looking forward to that. And, I think that chapter will start to turn in terms of working on the business and not in the business
Yep.
here in a few
Yep.
months. And we'll certainly talk about that transition too. But
Hmm.
I'm excited about it.
Can't wait. Well, thanks. This was a fun one.
Yeah, I love talking about sales and marketing. We could have gone an hour and a half on this, but we're trying to keep these brief and digestible.
Mhm.
So thank you all for listening to our chit chat on a little bit of sales and marketing and where we're at today. And if you want to get a hold of us and talk about sales and marketing or any other subjects, find us on LinkedIn, Stacey Feldman CPA or Roman Villard CPA. Talk soon.
Toodles.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Building in the Wild. If you found value in our conversation, we'd appreciate a review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. To stay up to date, make sure to hit that subscribe button. For more insights and additional information, our YouTube is at Full Send Finance and our website is fullsendfinance.com. Remember, the business landscape may be wild, but you don't have to navigate it alone. Build together, go further. Until next time.